Hi, beautiful mamas from around the world, and welcome back to Mothering in the Dark, and where our focus, our inspiration, and our intention is igniting you. And as promised, our topic or our theme today in our Contemplation Station is new beginnings and starting a new life. And so welcome to our Contemplation Station for today, and I'm so happy to be joining you, or that you've joined me here today. So as always, let us locate you. And I think it's always good to begin with how you feeling right now, where you're at, and to align with the topic of our contemplation today. Which new beginnings have started or are starting in your life at the moment? Although we all follow the same obvious cycle of transformation and growth in being born and dying, right? We also have many different cycles of growth and change happening on different levels of ourselves that contribute and influence to what can be experienced as a new beginning, or what I am entering a new beginning with. So take a moment to connect with yourself, and I think with ease of reference, connect with one new beginning, or which may have already begun for you, but to be able to use just one aspect, to not overwhelm yourself, but to work with it to extract perhaps the nuances or the elements of change and transformation that are significant to you in general, no matter which new beginning or which cycle you are embarking on. And to help you locate yourself or connect with you where you are at, I once again have some demonstration from Dr. David Hawkins, who, to be honest with you, I hadn't actually realized how much I had integrated and used his work over the years as a guide, or basically to be able to ground some mysterious and magnificent elements of ourselves in our own growing process until I started doing this series. So although he's passed, I still have a lot of gratitude and thanks to him for bringing this knowledge to light, that has certainly been very helpful to me and to my clients, and hopefully will be helpful to you. In our previous 2 episodes, we have spoken to, the different levels that we are receiving information in our body, and, how we integrate information. And to use a very loose definition of the dark as being unknown and a lack of information, and light as being known and, feels that we have access to information, we are entering and focusing today on this process of new beginning from the perspective that we are mothering in the dark, and that we're coming from a place of feeling stuck or unknown. So this is also, it's not based in any attachment, or it hasn't taken structure in terms of goodness and badness, or rightness and wrongness, but it's merely looking at like the speed of motion. We looked at it in the last episode from the perspective of our consciousness, and how on that spectrum, how we can move from or when we're in a consciousness that feels slow and low, and how we move or become aware of a consciousness that feels light and fast, and for me, somewhat ironically, more subtle, but be that as it may. So here what we're speaking about is not necessarily the speed of our consciousness and how it moves, but just the speed of energy. And when it is slow, in its slowest form, it is in a physical form that we can see objects, and we can even taste and touch and experience it on a physical level. Moving slightly faster, motion, and then when when energy is moving slightly faster, then it is sound, and light moves slightly faster than sound, and thought moves slightly faster than light. And at the end of his scale, he put spirit, but it could be infinite, it could be instant. It's the faster something is moving, the more difficult it is to give it shape, to name it. But we can still measure and notice the impact of it, even though it's difficult to explain and captivate. Okay, so whichever word resonates with you, or basically don't let any of these words necessarily take shape for you, which is talking about how we experience motion at its different speeds. And of course, within ourselves, we are receiving information on all of these different levels, and it's a collaboration, even though we do have the ability to just focus on the physical reality, or we have the ability to close our eyes and just listen to music. We can focus in on just what's happening in our thought space, or at least the thoughts that are moving slow enough for us to be able to put them into rationality and logic. And then, of course, in our private growth, or the mysteriousness that we notice within our days, is really where energy is moving at such speed. So knowing that all of this information is within, and it's automatic, and it's there, is another way of orientating yourself, if only in the way that it is knowing that there's more information that we are accessing, and that there are more levels to us. So something on our emotional level that is worthwhile knowing, seeing as though we're contemplating this in the dark, is being aware of how we come into our new beginning. Do we feel like we've been pushed into it? Do we feel that we are willingly taking a step? Is this leap of faith, which I suppose describes any new beginning that is truly new, is this leap of faith held with feelings that of powerlessness, that or unfairness, or uncertainty, or there could even be like pure fear, of the unknown. And am I feeling that I'm coming in isolated because of what sort of happened before I started my new beginning? Are there elements of, and also be incredibly gentle when you hear me say this word, are there elements of pride? Are there elements of fear? Are there elements of, just resentment or rejection or regret? Being mindful if you are coming down on yourself in any way, feeling guilty about the ending and this new beginning, being able to just put it down on a piece of paper. We're not trying to cut it out. We're not trying to make it feel better or anything else. We're just honestly putting it down there, okay? Just to say, I know that you're there, all right? Okay, so our beginning stage, our birth into something, could be the leap of faith. It's demonstrated in tarot. So I didn't mention that this is actually called the Osho Zen Tarot Transcendental Game, which I haven't brought out today to tell you how to do the cards or anything like that, but mainly just to demonstrate for us what often feels imperceptible or unknown to us as we're going through our journey, or just that we're unaware of it. But sometimes by being able to take note of the elements at different times will help us feel that we are in a spiral and not, in a linear way of back and forth, or in a 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. Within the cycle, there are obviously times where we feel that we're dealing with something that has started and that needs to end and needs to be completed, like on a practical or on an emotional level. And that can feel linear. And there is something beautiful about being able to deal with something in a linear way that does have a definitive start and a definitive ending. But knowing that it's part of a cycle can bring that space of awareness that helps us realize that if something sort of feels like it breaks here or comes to a halt here, that knowing that's actually a part of it, and being able to keep on moving instead of severing the process and being like, no, this is a sign that I shouldn't be doing this. When the very healthy amount of anxiety that does come with new, there's always anxiety with new, and that anxiety and intuition travel very, very closely together, and can often be confused. Okay, so being aware of our anxiety, perhaps the burden that we may carry inside of us, of feeling that we really need to prove ourselves, or that this needs to be done so that we can keep on belonging. Any feelings that we might have of guilt and fear and ego, and being aware of all the information that is coming through on different levels to us from our outside world and our inside world, and knowing that all of this information we don't need to process it or get through our thought or get the agreement of our mind, because there are definitely times in the cycle where it's not necessary or appropriate for us to be working on the level which we can explain and justify it, where we are working in the realm of our imagination, our intuition, our memory from past, and our inspiration for the ideas that we can use to move forward. All right, and with all this information, we create the container for you. We create a container for ourselves. And I think perhaps something which is beautiful to also bring in to helping us feeling more secure and open, and thus inviting other people into the space or more information from different levels to land in our space that we're ready for and that we're appropriate for, is to remember that in this time-space reality, so in our waking day, where a minute is 60 seconds, and where we go from, our morning hour to our noon hour to our afternoon and our evening, and there very clearly is a cycle of time there. And with all the awareness, in the last 2 episodes, we discussed how we receive information on so many different levels. And here we've discussed all the different speeds that this information travels at. But knowing that in linear time, one of the gifts we have and one of the options we have is that we only are working with one moment at a time, all right? And when we're in the extreme space of anxiety, this can actually be an incredible tool to stop the panic. If we're able to bring ourselves into the situation and say, okay, what is happening now? Okay, I'm just sitting in my car right now in this moment. I'm just sitting in my car. Okay, what is happening? Okay, nothing else is happening at the moment. I'm not on a phone call. I'm not, doing anything else. And as we are able to bring ourselves into where am I now? What is happening now? The panic and the anxiety, I'll call it highway or system, is allowed to, well, it does. It slows down a little bit. And then that anxiety, sometimes it's just to ground ourselves and level ourselves. But, that anxiety going into a different speed and space actually becomes or allows for our intuition to start coming forward. And the beautiful relationship between anxiety and intuition is the naturalness with anything new is that there will be anxiety, because this is our system saying, okay, pay attention, it's new territory, but that anxiety doesn't have to go through the roof. And that's when it starts surpassing, the window of tolerance within ourselves, and starts working against us. All right. So anxiety to a certain point is normal and incumbent and necessary in a new beginning. And with anxiety comes intuition. They play a great relationship with each other, though they can very much be experienced as opposites. All right. So here's our container view. I hope that you feel welcomed and invited and, contained or located in your space with regards to your new experience. So noticing, I think I might have mentioned it already, that when we're doing cycles of growth all the time, of transcendence and of transformation. And, most of them are positive, most of them are part of life. When we're younger, they are facilitated by a lot of support. I want to say if we had a good, in an ideal world, we support it and we learn how to move through these cycles. And the older we get, the more we become aware that there's many on different levels. And some feel that we are bigger and that we, because they are so new, we're doing them with a new level of consciousness and awareness. So let's say whether it's chosen or whether it's forced upon us, now we're aware of the feelings that we're coming in with, what our systems will do for us, or what that ignites in us is like information around like the uniqueness of you. Okay, what is my purpose here? And it doesn't necessarily need to be what is my purpose on earth, but what is my purpose in this situation? Where do I fit in this situation? And it can also go deeper into your contemplation of your existence on many levels. That's your unique way of connecting with the self, connecting with the level of self that you feel is necessary or to bring in to your new beginning. And as we discussed when we were looking at the rune in our last episode, Stop Improving Yourself, and we're looking at the card of the self and how they use the water element to go with the archetype of the self, because it expresses how from this relationship everything flows into the world and thus affects all of our ways of relating to the other elements of our life. So, when we're looking at our existence, it can just be around where we are at here and now, where we've experienced in our space sphere, and what is our relationship with ourselves at the moment. So with the new beginning invited, it's the contemplation of ourself, and with that will come, we'll activate the information not only from like our memory that is going to tell us about past fears, or it's also the memories of a previous experience where it's not only what we planned that manifested, but all the unplanned, and it will remind us of our success as well, and what had worked, or this is a beautiful space of opening what feels like our playground for our new beginning. We'll also connect with, and in psychology you could call it connecting in with your divine feminine and your divine masculine, or your feminine and your masculine attributes. But we'll speak about this just from an energy perspective around like your creativity, your intuition, your ideas, and with that there could be some new coming in there, where you can see where two things that you've used from the past you could perhaps combine. So this is, and you start contemplating like the how it could be, or you dream in it and you're looking at options, and from here you're extracting information of what you think would fit this new beginning, what would resonate with you, and then you also are bringing in the masculine, or the practical, the strong negotiation, the courage to collaborate and engage with others, and perhaps, so this card's pretty cool in the way that it demonstrates this energy as the rebel, because what it's also saying here is that the part of you that might be taking what you've understood practically, rationally, that you've applied, that you've already gained experience in, and the rebel is when you break out of the box and you really are understanding this vision, this need, the insight that you get in, how you understand in that it could work out in your situation with the practicality of it. But if it's a new beginning on that level, that might be requiring you to break out of the mold or the existing options for you and reshape them into something that aligns, with the self and the you and your current situation. And although this looks like it's just the beginning processes of it, it's it is a space where they can, be a discovery that sort of ignites you here, where you notice somewhere in what you've explored over here kind of coming together in a way that is unique to you, and that is different, and that is new. And this is marked, right? So don't worry about the black there in the nothingness. because they're on some levels black, and this space and this emptiness is incredibly beautiful and peaceful and high, and on the other end of the spectrum it feels like there's just no answers, there's just no way of moving forward, but in this process of your beginning, once you have formulated, or this information is coming to your consciousness, reminder, it might not have necessarily all processed through your mind in rational thoughts, but it's definitely come to the forefront of your awareness. And so there is a pause. There is a pause of like integration. And there's no time attached to this. This could have all happened in an hour, or this could be happening very like slow and steady, sort of over weeks. I think especially when we are building ourselves from a place where we have been through trauma, and where we are physically exhausted for whatever reason, or recovering from an illness or what have you, then this may be a slower process for us. But the actual time that it takes is going to be so unique. And I think the more peace or understanding or openness or surrender we have to our process, doesn't only feel unique to you, it can feel so precise, which is just absolutely beautiful. Okay, so in a way we've kind of done like the first quarter. Sometimes it's hard to describe something so open without measurement, but I know you all know where I'm coming from. Then, having gained our basis of our information about us, then comes the time of choice, where we're feeling that we are getting more succinct with how we're actually going to start landing this or bringing this into integrating it into our present, looking at what those choices are, and taking steps forward. Once we make the choice, the path becomes a lot more defined, and it can be very clarity making. And of course there can be anxiety, and there will be anxiety and intuition, to greater or lesser extent as we make this choice. And once we've made the choice, then, the energy of determination and the self-control, so that we are staying in alignment with this new choice that we're making, and we get in our practice, and we are strengthening that muscle of staying on the track, or staying determined, or staying connected in the process. And we delve in deep sometimes into our courage, and this can also be something that is shared, something that we we seek out, we lean on into someone, or it can be something that we do by ourselves, where we look back on like where we've come and consider where we're moving forward, and we acknowledge within that, the courage that it's taken for us. Sometimes we have the experience where we're feeling like we are literally making something out of nothing. And we need often to shore up our courage, and to ensure that maybe even encouragement is a part of our day. And yeah, if it's your cup of tea, being able to sit down and be that encouragement to yourself, that strengthens, our inner narrative, which creates a beautiful energy inside, and not needing to encourage ourselves or reinforce ourselves for the big decisions we've made, or the sweeping changes we've made, but to really, juice ourselves up where it is and where it counts, on a daily basis, is on like, well done, for showing up. Well done for making the time. Well done for rearranging your calendar that got, or for the day that got interrupted, and moving your priority into a space where you could actually give it your best. And or just well done on negotiating the day, even if there doesn't seem to be obvious markers of success, even if it looks like things just went backwards. Being able to encourage yourself to keep on going. Well done for trying. And here again, there's one of those spaces. I'm going to actually put this one on top because I do like noting that there are definitely times where, we breathe in out and we breathe in, and we breathe out and we breathe in and we breathe out. And so the cycle is allowed to go at its own calibration and very much aligned with us. And we have the grace and sort of the humility to honor the speed that we are working at, and to take the time out of the trust or the leap of faith that we took in the beginning to check in with ourselves, And sometimes it's not just about how am I doing along the way here or sorting out this problem here. If you're in the time, or if you're in the space to, or if you have the time to, it's also a beautiful time to kind of also acknowledge how far you've come, even if it was only an hour ago, or even if it took you, a few months to get you. That doesn't matter. But being able to start something new and kind of also see how far you've come is a tremendous energy and an amazing stamina that we can give ourselves, that fuels not only the words or the acknowledgement that we or other people can give us at the end of the day. It really creates that vibe inside of us, because we are aware of not only what we're moving forward with, but with the end goal being in mind, but very much being cognizant of the person and the journey who's doing it, and the little wins and the little changes that are happening in the meantime and actually accumulating as we're going. All right, so aloneness, not to be mistaken as loneliness, but when Joseph Campbell, if we had to look to psychology for this diagram to illustrate transformation, growth, one possible technique we would have looked at, or diagram we would have looked at, is that of Joseph Campbell, with the hero's journey and the dark night of the soul. And whichever school of thought or beautiful belief system that we're looking into, they all speak to a time in change where we've got to do it alone, all right? And this doesn't necessarily mean withdrawing from other people, though it may well be. But it is creating a space where we can be alone, undiluted, uninfluenced by the very interesting and beautiful external life that we also belong to. And that has always been loud, and it's always animated, and there's always something going on there, But it's another time in our cycle where we do collect with the part that only I can do, only I know, or maybe only I'm reckoning with alone. And this is a place where we perhaps go deeper into the more subtle information that is being fed to us. And this also, for some it might be prayer, it might be meditation, it might be devotion. For others, it might be agnostic. It might just be focusing on breath, on regulation, on swimming, or, doing something that takes us into the space where we're not so tight in our thinking. And what that is doing is it's just creating the space and allowing more intuitive thought, or like I say, it's very difficult to put a structure on describing this, but what it feels like is a space that is just uninterrupted, maybe, though that's not always the case. It's kind of when the process I spoke about in our previous session, where you're not trying to stop your mind, right? But what you're doing is you're noticing that your mind is having a thought, but you're taking a breath and you're relaxing your body. So your body is not collaborating with that thought by reinforcing the feedback of that thought. Your body is in a place of peace, and that thought, that repetitive thought, is there, and we're not fighting with it, but we stay in and, sink more into the space where we're aware of, my body is relaxed, and the peace that is there in it, And so that is a space that allows us to be separate, or to give time to connect in with the uniqueness of all the things that make us up, that are coming alive in this process, whether they are questions, whether it's reckoning. So now we're further into the process, we've made choices, things have started speeding up, we're allocating more time and self-control and determination to it. We are in the space of courage and bravery and stepping out, and that's very much action in. And what a beautiful compliment or pit stop that we make on a certain level within ourselves, to hear the uniqueness of us and to hear or connect in with and feel the wholeness of our system communicating with us, and to know what is about us and for us, and that will ignite change on some level in this open space of aloneness, where we just, have filtered out everyone else's opinion, how everyone else does it, what is being said, what is transpiring, and we're literally just connecting in. Then the wheel of change starts gaining more momentum. And this often, with a deeper connection to ourselves, brings a breakthrough. And this can be yay. It can be felt on any level. It can feel like a great idea. It can feel like things start moving, like there's more momentum going. And this then re-energizes our original vision, our original creativity and insight, and our original choices and awareness. So this is now going on to a different level. It's moving into the beyond, and it's moving onto a higher level where the vision is becoming more tangible to us, and where a transformation is happening and integration, and so it's letting us know all our different levels of information that are coming together, and we're starting to experience them in wholeness. We're starting to experiencing them as us in our reality, and and it might even feel like there's that connection, that what's happening inside of me is materializing outside of me. There's also an element of, in the aloneness, that allows for this beautiful change and then breakthrough cycle, is some of the letting go of what we came in with around our ego and our fears. But it also might be like a letting go process of how we thought it would go, and we're connecting a little bit more with how it's manifesting in our reality and how it's actually going. And also no measurements around here of whether we think it's a disappointment or not. It's more looking at where's our fixedness here. Is there space for things to go differently to how we imagined it, and for us to still feel like we are, growing and improving and on the cycle, and so it's allowing that integration of releasing some of the blockages that might have come up, of letting go of how we think it should be going, or maybe even realizing that we have let go of how we thought it should be. And this precedes, another change and another level of our insight, of our vision for our change, and depending how many layers or how deep this has been, or how much this is changing our outside world, then we are experiencing like transformation going on in our inner world and in our outer world. And the integration of this transformation, might sound a little bit counterintuitive, but after long periods of lack of resources, it takes quite a lot of getting used to and overcoming having a flow of resources, and the undoing of the the mistrust or the heartache or the difficulty or the pain that it involved when everything was restricted, and we integrate again, and on all the levels that our unique self require, in terms of our identity, the way we view our world, the position that we allow for ourselves. And a part of this, once again, is releasing from the cultural programs that need to be released. Sometimes when we've had this breakthrough and we've gone through this change and this new experience and this new vision, what we realize is that either we quite consciously had to let go of some conditioning, or we realized the conditioning that stopped us, and that maybe made some of these, like the integration of something a little bit more challenging. And it's another beautiful release of some conditioning or beliefs that we don't need anymore, or that don't resonate in our unique self as true anymore, and giving ourselves, the tenderness and the compassion. This is like in our integration space over here, to acknowledge that there might be that level of change and realization going on for us, and it can highlight that a lot has broken down in, our original perspective of self. I'm going to put this one back just because I love it so much. And it's the self that we came in with, and to notice how, like, that self has had different elements added to her or him along the way, and some have, been brought out of us by the choices or the experiences and just the beautiful synchronicity of life and the universe conspiring to have a conversation with us, and what that change to self is starting to say about or note the difference between perhaps the self of 20 years ago or the self of a year ago, and working with that level of, like, ego death, could be called, or that particular identity loss, or just, the courage to live a program that may not be agreed with by a lot of the people that you have belonged to or are connected with, And so this area of transformation and integration is also doesn't have a time period on it, and it's honored by you. And even if I know desperation isn't necessarily the right word, but it's the word coming up right now, like the desperation of the resources or what the physical world requires or what daily life requires might feel quite pressing. This catch up, basically, or this integration and this transformation and this work within you, once again, just being able to put it down, maybe you don't necessarily have to go into the depth of it and resolve it completely in order to move forward, because, as you know, every time we do these cycles and these spirals, we will go a level deeper. We're never in the same place again, because we're always a different person and it's in a different time. So I think being able to be in the awareness that sometimes there are elements of our ego, or elements of our identity, or elements of our conditioning and our ideas of self that may feel that they really do. Some of them might be transmuting and evolved forever, Some might not need to be revisited again. Some might be, changing in our own inner perspective of ourselves for the first time. And that can feel, as much as it looks like, in our linear thinking, oh, we're getting towards the end of this, so it should be coming good now. It's not completely the point, because this can feel more like what we would call a breakdown in our, like, psychological terms, because there might be multiple levels of us that are changing, and it might be one of those very beautiful spaces that I always find that the darkness allows for us, when we have the realization that maybe some of the conditioning that we carried up until then, and we let go of it, but it actually ends up changing quite a lot inside of us. That the vulnerability is that there's actually a new beginning starting here with ourselves, So this cycle that we're going through has now started another cycle going on, But there is something beautiful and there is something daunting when so many levels and identities of you shift from a place of being conditioned into and are ignited closer to the truth of who you are in yourself. And yeah, the intensity of that beauty and that unknown, then once again also, you know, integrated or allowed, like in a space of silence. And I know in the traditional pack, this is I think the moon, but I'll double check that while I'm chatting with you. But it's not only speaking to the silence for us to integrate, you know, it also speaks to the sort of automatic process that happens in us when, you know, all we've done is we've entertained the idea of letting go of an identity, or we felt it. But what the rest of our system is doing, that is beyond our thoughts in our linear space, is often described as, you know, surprising, or surprises coming through. But at that speed of integration, being in a space of silence, that is a place where we can, sorry, I'm trying to find this. It's not the moon, it's actually the star. Okay. Right. So this is not just about the processing and the integrating of what we've let go of, but what emerges out of that is the star, the you, the dream of you, a connection, a closer connection with the possibility of the dream coming through, and, you know, the energy for you to dream. Because often when we're starting off here, we've got a plan, and yeah, there are ideas of dreams, what we hope for, you know, but it may be tentative, where it's still like, okay, well, this is what's practically going to work, and, you know, whereas at this part of the cycle, where we've gone deeper into ourselves, it is, you know, where we allow in the combination of everything we've learned and everything that life requires from us. But this for me always feels the time where, like, we are ignited, and where the newness of me that is being revealed from this journey has become apparent. No matter how small, big it is, you know, change, especially our internal change or change in the universe, is not dependent on, like, bigger is better, you know. 1 degree of change can have infinite change to infinite galaxies. So it's not a space of measuring, it's a space of sinking into and being with, and once again allowing yourself to review how far you've come, you know, and letting that be. So it's another breathe out. It's a pause within your cycle, you know. And then, so this is depicted as past lives, which I don't think we even need to really go into the concept of past life at all. But the level that we can look at it is like, from what is integrated, how we've reviewed this journey thus far, and all the processing that we've done thus far, it's a good time to kind of do a review of self, a review of the plan, a review of the process, a review of everyone involved, and not necessarily from an analytical perspective, you know, but from a connection of being connected with it. And like I often say, just putting it down on paper so that you can allow all the other, you know, levels of information that is automatically coming into our body, and the systems that are calculating and processing information with 100% awareness of what this new beginning that you've set out to do involves, and on levels way beyond just what our mind or our thought process agrees with, and I mean even not our whole thought process, our logical, our rational, our words, our explanation, our justification, you know, and allowing the wholeness and allowing more of us and all of us to come into, and as we reviewing, there's also the movement of like moving forward, you know, of bringing the cycle to an end, because we've grown, and the person who started is subtly and sometimes even magnificently or very obviously progressing, processing and changing, and have integrated these changes. So a review on that level is beautiful and really does top us up and is enough, you know. If you have the mind that likes to explore it into, you know, a much bigger, more whole perspective of you can, and you would naturally, I suppose, in your contemplation, in your personal contemplation, go into that deeper space, you know, where we allow like the patterns of our past, you know, like whether it's sabotage or whether it's, you know, getting to a certain point where we feel that we can't proceed without like a team, or whatever it may be. Our children suddenly start needing us more, or so we're looking at almost like the deeper patterns of ourselves that play a role in sometimes competing, sometimes complementing, or sometimes, you know, processing us through our life or through our experience where we're at, and feeling like how those themes are changing inside of us. You know, it might be, when I say when we go deeper, it might be looking at ourselves from an archetype perspective. So I know that one of my archetypes is the teacher or the mother, you know, or the thinker. And if that is one of the deeper themes of me that is a player in the patterns of my life, that's what I mean by like doing a deeper past review, going into the unique themes that are within you, that will shift and change once you've gone through integration and a transformation and releasing a layer of conditioning, you know. And then it looks like what we've got is a home run. And for now, let's just, you know, we're completing a cycle. Alright? After that level of introspection, you know, and it can happen on the level of like going deep into my soul purpose. It can also look at the reflection of like, oh, I see how my pattern of choosing business partners before has changed, and the understanding of, you know, the difference that makes in our lives. And then the movement is really into where we are feeling the change, and we're feeling the relief of the change, and we're feeling the momentum of the change. And you know, it's not to say that when we started off with our idea in our new beginning that we necessarily are working with an idea that looks anything like that anymore, because at our times of reflection and adjusting and integrating, it might look quite completely different. But no matter how it's looking. Once we get into, this part of our cycle, there's an experience of being, it's a breathe out, but a breathe out that is about enjoying. It's about being able to take in the changes. It's being able to contemplate the innocence. It's being able to look at all the little beauties that have come out of this experience, because I might have had the need to start a new beginning that was, about bringing in more money so that I could secure my family. But along the way, I might have, very surprisingly met people I wasn't expecting to meet. I might have come across programs and tools or existing things going on in my community, or, like I say, talents within myself that I just couldn't have actually planned it better, and I couldn't have known, even when I was in this wonderful space of listening to my inner voice and my creativity and, connecting with all of that. So it's a time to look back, or to even just be in a moment of allowing the pleasure of the process that has come, and when this is happening simultaneously with perhaps another new beginning that is challenging, being able to recognize that on this cycle where your awareness is, where it felt really big and daunting to step into, to allow yourself to explore all the mysteries, all the secrets, all the hidden bits, all the added bonuses that have come from the cycle of change, and that allows us to go into a space where we hear the words beyond illusion, where we can be in our space of imagination and contemplation, all right, over here. But we've seen what happens within that process. And while we might not be able to say, okay, well, I'd like this magic to come and I'd like that to show up, like supersonic without me needing to earn it, all of those things, we start gaining a more grounded perspective of the space that we can make as we embark into the unknown of a new beginning, for the mysteries, for the bonuses, for the unexpected surprises. And with that, we will allow ourselves to, because it's funny, because it's also the card again of a new beginning. We allow the new beginning to be on its evolved layer, on its evolved, say, level, so to speak. We allow for more space to how shall I say, for it to be better than what we can imagine. And so our next new beginning would be perhaps equipped with, although it might be daunting, or although it might be incredibly scary, and it might feel that we've been forced into another situation again, because for some of us, we we live a life, and it's neither right nor wrong. In my own language, I'd say, our pathway and what's written on our soul is really our blueprint. And if it is, what has been written for me is to do that phoenix and ashes more than once in my life, and one would feel that it can actually potentially kill you to do that if you just have to hear the story of someone else's experience. But in those journeys and the realizations over here, where you start seeing, this is where the universe was conspiring with me, and this is where my hopes and dreams that I'd actually put on the back burner because this needed my attention also manifested within the cycle. So the integration into the new beginning is that although I might not be able to plan and say what comes where, or, you know, buy a lottery ticket on this date or anything like that, what I can do is, should I be pushed or forced into another situation of like transformation, reinvention, there's space for me, which might just be like that in that space of the nothingness, there is the possibility of the element of surprise and bonuses and beyond my wildest dreams and people and, you know, synchronicity and circumstances. And then it comes to completion. So it's the end of that cycle, you know, and within that, I want to say there's an opportunity, all right? Depending on our own unique circumstances, we won't know whether that opportunity actually looks like consecutive 5-day break, or if it's the opportunity every night to revisit the fact that a cycle has come to completion, and that there's certain things that we have transmuted, which means we have moved it from a lower vibration by bringing our higher vibration. So if, say now, we've transmuted some guilt, you know, by bringing a higher vibration to it and going through this process of realization. So it's not like the guilt got cancelled or it got kicked outside and it could come back again. But on that particular level and in that cycle, we have transmuted it from a level which it may be so profound that we never ever need to return to that space or that experience of guilt or shame again, or indecision. Maybe we've learned a little bit more about how we make decisions or process our information. And then the master, as you know, whatever we embarked on, we've gained a certain level of mastery on it just because we've done it, just because we have the experience of realizing the simultaneous cycle and journey of what we have agency of and what we can bring it, and then where the universe or God or life or you know, quantum physics, whatever you want to call it, where we meet each other and where we ignite each other, and what that has meant for ourselves, you know, and what that has changed within ourselves, and yeah, then the new beginning begins again from the perspective of a self that is changed from the self that started the process, that is more enlightened, that is more experienced, that you know, may also have a little bit more wear and tear. That's also a part of it. But I think the compassion of the cyclical motion of a cycle, and maybe taking a little bit of time today to look at little elements that could possibly you know, keep us involved and connected and feel that we are participating in a new beginning, and not that it's you know, happening to us and that we've got no agency, and being able to find where that space is and to explore that in our own growth, to minimize those ups and downs, that swinging back and forth, that trust and that mistrust between like is this right or isn't this right? Can I trust it? Yesterday I was feeling so joyful and motivated, and today now I'm feeling down and I'm feeling scared, because those are like the very normal parts of our growth and tellings of our past and communications of our automatic conversation meeting our new conversations, and just the cycles of us, and so it's really my hope today that it was helpful for all of us to gain the rhythm and the truth and the experience of ourselves from a perspective that encourages this momentum, that accompanies us, and that invites a level of compassion and past review and checking in with self that really contributes to ourself and ignites us and the possibility of us and the beautiful courage and strength and potential of all of us. And to the mamas who are in the dark and it's excruciating and it's feeling painful and incredibly lonely, I'm sending from my place of innocence and from my place of deep love and trust in you. I'm just sending you a golden hug, and perhaps for those of you who resonate, carnelian is a stone I never really paid much attention to until it became meaningful to me, that it was a reminder that it's a stone that helps you keep on keeping on. It helps with the letting go of the old burning off and the making space for the new coming in, on many interesting levels, but we don't need to know all of that now. But I keep it as a reminder or an invitation to the invisible and the visible to just remind me that I am supported, that I do belong, that I'm not trying to prove anything, and that as difficult as it is to let go of the fear and the ego and the identities and the pride, or letting go of what I think should be happening, or facing that they're blockages, that I'm able to do this from a perspective of not beginning and end wrong and right, but within the cycle of growth that I can honor within myself. And if my mindset allows, to invite the space that even if I can't see it, I am supported and I am being loved, and my system within and without is actually designed for life to keep on growing and to expand and to succeed and to transmute that which is slow and low and dark and heavy in us into our lightness as we continue to ever expand. And so I'm sending you all lots and lots of love for today. A reminder that I post every Tuesday and every Thursday. If something resonated with you today, or if you enjoyed today, please feel free to like and subscribe. And also feel free to add within your comments if there's a specific contemplation that you would like us to contemplate in our Contemplation Station, or if you'd like to give a shout out to all the mums who are mothering in the dark with you, or just to share some love, please feel free to do down below in the comment section. And I look forward to seeing you at our next Contemplation Station. Goodbye.